Every year when I taste in Napa Valley, there's a handful of wines that rise to the top. These are not usually the most expensive wines, or even Cabernet Sauvignon. Many of these wines fly well under the radar. I'm back in Napa Valley this week. I'm here for the premier Napa Valley auction and attending numerous events where dozens of producers taste through their lineup of wines. In addition, I've been making the rounds on my own and visiting a number of producers. In all, I've tasted hundreds and hundreds of outstanding Napa Valley wines this week. In this video, I'm going to identify some of my absolute favorites. Let's start out strong with one of the most impressive wines that I tasted during the entire trip. When I sign up for the Premier Napa Valley event, the very first thing that I do is register for the Oakville tasting. This event is always completely booked, and justifiably so. Some of the most prestigious producers in Napa Valley are there pouring their wines. Among others, you'll find Harlan, Bond, Opus One, Dalla Valle, Heitz Martha's, Morley, Tor, and much, much more. Many of these producers were pouring their 2022 wines, which were certainly very enjoyable. But tasting through the different wines at this tasting made me realize just how much I appreciate the 2023 vintage. So the first Napa Valley wine that's worth buying now is the 2023 Vinehill Ranch Oakville Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. This wine is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. The winemaker is Francois Peychon, so it's no surprise that I liked it, as I've long been a fan of the Drinkward Peychon wines as well. Despite the fact that this is a powerful wine, it's extraordinarily elegant. It matures for around 22 months in 2/3 New French oak. This wine features flavors and aromas that include blackcurrant, graphite, tobacco, and mixed spice. It's an absolutely seamless, refined wine with no rough edges. I tried this wine 2 days in a row with consistent results, so I'm confident that it's definitely one of the very best wines that I tried when I was in Napa Valley. The critics seem to agree with me, as it's received at least 2 perfect 100-point scores, as well as a 99-point score. As much as I enjoyed this wine, it's definitely one that will improve with another 5 to 6 years of additional bottle age, and it will certainly cruise in your cellar for 2 decades or more. I understand that this wine has already been made available to the Vinehill Ranch members, but you may still be able to get some directly from the winery. If not, keep your eyes out, as I understand that they'll be making a limited number of bottles available through retail channels in due course. Next up is not just one wine, but a producer that I think more people should be paying attention to, namely Myriad Wines. Myriad Wines is run by Mike Smith, who's been making extremely high-quality wine in Napa Valley for more than 2 decades. Mike learned how to make wine under top consulting winemaker Thomas Rivers Brown, or TRB, and he's been doing a tremendous job making wines in his own right. In fact, his Myriad wines have been highly acclaimed by numerous critics, and he's received dozens of 100-point scores. Mike sources the fruit for Myriad wines from a number of top vineyard sources in Napa Valley, including a number of the most prestigious Beckstofer vineyards, such as Tokelon and Dr. Crane. One of these wines, namely the 2021 Myriad Beckstofer Dr. Crane Elysian, received 5 perfect 100-point scores, which is extremely rare. When I was in Napa Valley, I was fortunate to be able to taste with Mike Smith, and we tried pretty much his entire lineup of 2023 wines, and they were extremely impressive. So impressive, in fact, that it's difficult to recommend just one of these wines. So instead, I would recommend that you perhaps try a Myriad wine, and if you're a fan of the style, I would encourage you to sign up for his mailing list. These wines compete with some of the very best wines in Napa Valley, but at pricing that is oftentimes much more reasonable. While Cabernet is king in Napa Valley, there's some tremendous white wines being produced as well, including the next wine worth buying now, which is the Maven Chardonnay. If you're not familiar with Maven, it's a passion project from Hourglass owner Jeff Smith, his wife Carolyn, and winemaker Tony Biaggi. Hyde Vineyard in Carneros is one of my favorite sources for high-quality Chardonnay, and the fruit for this impressive wine was sourced from old vines that were planted way back in 1991. This wine was barrel fermented with full malolactic fermentation, and they matured it on the lees for 16 months in 30% New French oak. This Chardonnay had tremendous complexity and layers of flavor. Flavors and aromas included lemon, peach, brioche, ginger, gunflint, and there was a saline quality that I enjoyed as well. This wine was incredibly well balanced and there was a long, complex finish. For $85 a bottle, this wine is definitely a compelling value. Now let's shift gears a little bit. This next wine may surprise some of you as it's Merlot. But unlike Miles from Sideways, I definitely drink effing Merlot, especially this one. This isn't any ordinary Merlot. Rather, it's a serious, structured, mountain-driven expression that also has abundant acidity and freshness. And it's not 100% Merlot. They also blend in 11% of other grapes, including Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Petit Verdot. This wine reminds me in many ways of an impressive right bank Bordeaux from a warmer vintage. It offers tremendous pleasure. Better still, it sells for only around $70 per bottle. This wine matures in 45% new French oak for around 15 months or so, and it has extremely impressive purity of fruit. You can expect flavors and aromas that include black cherry, plum, blueberry, violets, mixed herbs, and spice. This is the 2023 Pride Merlot, and the fruit for this wine comes from Spring Mountain. This wine offers incredible value at only around $70 per bottle. This wine was well received by critics as it received 3 different 94-point scores. Next up is another Chardonnay. This one is arguably even a little bit more impressive. It costs a little bit more, but I ended up getting 6 bottles for my own cellar. I was that impressed with it. This is a Chardonnay that was produced from 35-year-old Wente clones. It's from the 2023 vintage. This is significant because there were no heat spikes in that vintage. As such, the fruit was allowed to remain on the vines and reach full ripeness, while at the same time preserving freshness and acidity. The result is an extremely impressive, harmonious Chardonnay that's perfectly balanced with incredible richness, yet freshness as well. This fruit was grown on Spring Mountain and was produced by a historic producer named Stony Hill. 2023 was the first vintage for talented winemaker Reed Griggs, and I was a big fan of the entire lineup. Previously, Mr. Griggs had experience working for some of my favorite wineries, including Harlan, Dalla Valle, McDonald, and Ridge. This is the 2023 Stony Hill Estate Chardonnay. This wine sells for around $125 a bottle. They didn't make that much of it, and you probably need to get this one direct from the winery. Note that this is not their SHV bottling, which sells for a much lower price point. I enjoy that wine as well, but this estate wine is the one that I think is truly special. In fact, Goloni called it the best Chardonnay that Stony Hill has ever produced, which is certainly high praise indeed, coming from this iconic Chardonnay producer. While it's going to be difficult to keep my hands off this one, it will certainly get much better with additional bottle age, and it's capable of aging effortlessly for decades. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that I hold at least several bottles back so I can try them once they reach their peak. Next up is another producer that I want to feature more broadly rather than touting just 1 or 2 specific wines. This producer is named Zeitgeist, which means spirit of the times. Zeitgeist is a small family-owned winery that's owned and operated by a husband and wife winemaking team. They had some very interesting wines across the board, and what really stood out for me is the fact that I really enjoyed these wines despite the fact that they were pouring their 2022 red wines. As mentioned earlier, in general, I was a much bigger fan of the wines from the 2023 vintage than 2022, but Zeitgeist was a notable exception. Zeitgeist has several impressive Cabernet Sauvignon-based wines, including one from Hell Mountain, another from Oakville Station, and a Sleeping Lady Vineyard bottling. Sleeping Lady Vineyard is a single vineyard that I believe is located in the Yountville area, and which has been gaining in notoriety and acclaim recently. So definitely one to keep an eye out for. But they also had a Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon that offered incredible value at $90 per bottle, and which compares favorably to many Napa Valley wines that sell for more than that. They also had some intriguing white wines, including a Trousseau Gris that sells for right around $30 per bottle. Shafer is certainly a name that many of my viewers will recognize, as I've discussed the iconic Shafer Hillside Select on this channel many times, but they also have an impressive wine that's called 1.5 that sells for just a little bit more than $100 per bottle. I had a chance to try both the 2006 and the 2023 vintages when I was in Napa Valley recently, and both were standouts. The 2023 Shafer 1.5 is available on store shelves now. This wine is a blend that consists of 96% Cabernet Sauvignon, 2% Petit Verdot, and 1% each of Merlot and Malbec. This wine matures in 100% New French oak for around 18 months. This wine features flavors and aromas of blackberry, plum, licorice, graphite, and cedar. It had impressive acidity and freshness to balance the intense concentrated flavors. This wine has offered consistent value for many years, but what most impressed me about this wine was just how age-worthy it is. I just assumed this was always a bit more of a cellar defender and one that should be enjoyed on the younger side. But longtime winemaker Elias Fernandez told me that this one consistently ages well for at least 20 years or so. And to prove it, I tried the 2006 vintage, and he was absolutely right. The 2006 was still showing extremely well and showed no signs of fading. So the 2023 Shafer 1.5 will give you lots of flexibility in your cellar. You can buy this wine to enjoy on the younger side, or let it age and gain additional complexity and enjoy it in the future as well. And if you get a chance to take a flyer on an older vintage of Shafer 1.5 that's been well preserved, particularly from stronger vintages, I would not hesitate to give it a try. Heitz is an iconic, historic Napa Valley producer that was founded back in the early 1960s. It's perhaps most famous for its iconic Martha's Vineyard bottling, but they also make an outstanding Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. I just tasted this wine at the winery a couple days ago, and it was extremely impressive. So much so that I picked some up for my cellar. The 2021 vintage is their current release because they matured a little bit longer. 2 years in oak, and then another couple years in the bottle before they finally release it. This wine is made from some of their single vineyard fruit that did not make it into their single vineyard bottlings. So this wine does include some fruit from Martha's Vineyard, Trailside, and more. Another thing I like about this wine is that the alcohol by volume is extremely reasonable, only 13.5%. This wine was extremely well received by critics and even received a 99-point score from Decanter. This is wine that's already showing well, but will cruise in your cellar for 15 to 20 years or more. Better still, this wine is a tremendous value that sells for as little as $65 a bottle. If you'd like to learn more about some of the very best experiences when you visit Napa Valley, please be sure to watch this video that's linked above. And if you'd like more of my wine collecting insights, as well as early access to my weekly wine videos, be sure to check out channel memberships, which I recently enabled.